Other than that, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this Iraq update. There we go. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yeah, we're good.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for being here, man. Appreciate it. How's your day going?
Great. How's yours going?
Awesome. Just busy. Big things happening. Things are moving. But yeah, just wanted to connect with you. It's a little download on the latest.
Well, let me bounce some things off you. You and I've got the same time in this 10 years. So here's my question for you.
Okay.
With the 10 years you've been in this, have you ever seen Iraq do a temporary or interim budget? The reason I bring this up is because it's very critical. Have you ever seen that?
I don't think so, no.
No, neither have I. Now, the reason I put a huge emphasis or focus on this is this. In the past, Iraq has always taken their budgets. They've approved them usually during Q1 of that year. Okay. And then they turn around and backdate it. The budgets would go from their fiscal year of January through the end of December. The reason they didn't need a temporary budget, even though they did not approve their budget till later of Q1 of that year, is because they backdated it. Now, here's the real key thing in this right now. A lot of different, I'll just say, without putting anyone blast or attacking anyone and being respectful, there's a lot of gurus right now talking about the budget getting implemented around January 1st. Now, that can't happen. Here's why. Because Iraq, I've already seen a good 2 or 3 articles talking about doing a temporary or interim budget this year. Now, I actually did some extensive research in roughly about 4 or 5 days ago. I did a video where this was important to me. I found out through my research, and I shared it with my audience, that Iraq's fiscal year in the 1970s was actually the same exact as Kuwait's is right now from April through March. Yeah, now follow me here. The reason why Iraq would right now, they talked about an interim budget or a temporary budget is this. It's because they need to, and it's a month-to-month deal. They need to cover a period of time that the 2020 budget won't cover. But that's why I brought up, notice how in the past, their normal budgets would span from January through December. So if their normal budgets go January through December, why would they need a temporary budget? Well, you know what that tells us? They're transitioning to a new fiscal year. See how important this is? Now, notice how throughout most of this year, they put a lot of articles out talking about how if they were to change the rate right now, it would be pegged to the dollar in the dollar range. If the rate were to change now while it's pegged to the dollar. What that tells us, they're most likely going to transition to where Kuwait's at, unpegged from the dollar, repeg. Kuwait tells us they're pegged to an undisclosed assortment basket. It's a secret basket. They do not call it the SDR. It's called an undisclosed basket is the most they'll share. But what that shows is that Iraq is going to transition back to where they were in the 70s. They're going to a new fiscal year, and that's why they need this temporary / assortment budget, or I'm sorry, the temporary or interim budget. Okay, because they're going to a new fiscal year, but that also tells us they're not going to change the rate at the beginning of the year because they need a month-to-month temporary budget to cover their operating expenses for the first part of the year. So I'm just bringing real hard facts into this so that nobody's misled and all the air's straight, clean. So that's where we're at, on a real level with facts. Right now, obviously, Iran is bombing the U.S. throughout bases around Iraq because Iran is retaliating because we're removing the Iranian influence from Iraq. We're further continuing setting the rate change stage to prepare Iraq for the rate change. Now, one thing I'd like to share with you, look at Iraq's actions in a way clear from 2018 through now. Starting at about the beginning of 2018, they they removed the multi-currency practice. They're only allowed to use the Iraq dinar going forward. And look at all the articles just throughout the year of 19 talking about how the banks were writing loans to the citizens. What they're doing is they've transitioned at the beginning of 18 to a single currency use, just the dinar. And then by launching loans, they're getting the citizens used to using the dinar to strengthen the dinar, which strengthens the economy and everything, to try to get citizens to start businesses and really just drive the economy and strengthen it. At the beginning of 19, they got into trade agreements, reconstruction agreements. Remember, they can't pay for reconstruction right now because their currency is not internationally recognized. That's why you've seen throughout this whole year, you've seen a lot of articles talking about reconstruction because they can't pay contractors with their dinar. It's not recognized internationally. So trade, reconstruction, and then everything else that Baghdad and Kurdistan did starting from about July going forward, where Kurdistan and Baghdad put all those agreements in place to finalize everything on the budget regarding Kurdistan's portion of the budget for Article 40 HCL. All of that is post-rate change. So basically, Iraq has, from 18 going forward, Iraq has really extensively gone out of their way to set the stage. But everything I just showed with you needs money allocated for it, such as reforms. Okay, so what are they doing right now? They're working on approving and implementing that 2020 budget. What does that mean to us? It means they're positioning the money for the rate change. That's what they're doing. They've also, one of the things I stressed to my group is Iraq. There's other articles right now where it talks about the central bank and the government going through old budgets. The reason why is they're auditing those old budgets. And what they're doing is, the reason why the 2020 budget is so critical with having the money allocated is they're going through all of this to reduce and control it. It's a layer of transparency. They're doing all this to control and reduce corruption going forward. So that's why the budget's so critical. But right now what I see them doing is really positioning the money for the rate change, and that's as well as that layer of transparency, and that's where the 2020 budget comes in. So the facts show me we're reaching the end of this. What I'm looking for two key things right now within the month of January. Now, remember, this is my opinion. I feel Iraq has about 90 days. They're not in any kind of rush. 90 days to really get the money positioned and change the rate. I'm looking kind of from the beginning of January through the end of March. So they put a lot of filler information in there. That's what they're doing right now with the prime minister, just putting a lot of filler information in there. Because they still have 90 days, I don't think they're going to give us any kind of resolution on the prime minister probably until about mid-January. And then I don't think we're going to see the first reading because they got more than enough time. So I don't think we'll see the first reading of the budget probably till about the end or second half of January. Once we see that, it's all downhill from there. So they could do the first reading of the budget during the second half of January, do the second reading of the budget somewhere in February, and then the third reading of the budget and finalize it during the first half of March. And then it's game over. But I wanted to stress to you, like I said, I actually found news showing that Iraq's former fiscal year in the 1970s, before they became under the guidance and control and sanctions of the U.S. government, okay, Iraq's fiscal year actually was April through March. That's very key in this. That temporary interim budget stresses that they are most likely going to transition to a new fiscal year, because they're showing us through the interim budget that they have to financially cover a period of time that the 2020 budget's not going to cover. And if they have to start the year off with the temporary budget, they're telling you that the 2020 budget is not going to be backdated to January 1st.
Right.
That's why that's very important. So
interesting.
That's all I got, man. It's kind of thin right now with the holidays. Not like I said, Iran is retaliating. They've set off a few rockets and missiles on our air bases and stuff throughout Iraq. They're retaliating because we are removing the Iranian influence from the country of Iraq.
Gotcha. Yeah, they're not liking that. They don't want that.
No, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it. Yeah. If anything,
you're welcome.
Anything else comes through, we'll definitely get connected and make sure the people know. But yeah, guys, if you want it straight from the source, just go subscribe. He's got an awesome channel. Other than that,
God bless, Brad.